afternoon, fellow citizens. Welcome to the Citizens Chat Show here on Civic Space TV. Today is day 41 of the 42 days lockdown the country has been into in a bid to contain the lethal second wave of COVID-19. The day today is, I think, it's 29th of July, 2021. And we are here to discuss how best Parliament should facilitate MPs to enable them deliver on their mandate, the democracy, of course, that the 200 million for the MPs vehicles that we are having a discussion on this whole week. So joined on the panel, and I will need to start from how I'm presented on the screen by here is Honorable Agaba Abbas. Are you now also a doctor? Do you use that because you were given this title, Honorable Doctor?
well, yes, I do. It's an honorary one. It's an honor.
Yeah.
I shouldn't miss it.
Honorable Dr. Abbas Agaba Mugisha is the MP in the 10th Parliament representing the people of Kitagwenda County. But also, I think you're the head of the Afro-Arab Youth League or something?
Yes, Afro-Arab Youth Council.
You Afro-Arab Youth Council. Yes, welcome, Honorable. And because you've been in Parliament, this topic really will need to pick from your knowledge so much. Thank you for honoring our invitation, Honorable.
Thank you, Damian. I'm happy to be with you. It's a pleasure to always have time to interact with, to interface with the people, to interact with the public. If you can add value, it makes sense. Why not? Yeah,
thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you. Then we also have Benard Cankara. He's the Executive Director of Efficacy Methodology. It's a public policy think tank, and he's more into research and public policy. Welcome, Benard.
Thank you, Damian, and thank you for having me in this space today. I look forward to this wonderful conversation with comrades. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benard, for honoring our invitation on a short notice, but you had to make it. Then, for now, we have our regular panelist, Joseph Ochieno, is the UPC contender, and of course, a regular panelist and a public policy, of course, a political analyst. Joseph, you're welcome, sir.
A pleasure being here, and delighted to have the two colleagues join us today.
Yes, I think to start off the discussion, of course, parliaments perform vital roles in the systems of representative democracy, but they also play an especially important role in emerging democracies, not only in improving the quality of governance by ensuring transparency and accountability, but also in shaping public expectations and attitudes to democracy. Parliaments are a single most important institution in the overseeing government activities, of course, scrutinizing the legislation and representing the public's concerns to those in power. Their performance actually in holding government to account and engaging with voters will help so much to establish norms and values of course, in emerging democracies like Uganda. Just right there, the topic that we are faced with today, Honorable, I need to start with you. We are waiting for some other two members who will join in, but once they join in, then we'll take it on from there. But for now, we need to kickstart. Honorable, how best should Parliament facilitate MPs to enable them deliver on their day-to-day mandate, especially in a growing democracy like Uganda?
Thank you, Damian, and my colleagues, the panelists, and the viewers out there. To start with, Damian, you need to congregate the different roles that members of Parliament play. When you say how Parliament should empower, should facilitate the MPs to be able to perform their roles. In Uganda, and I think in much of Africa, there are stated roles of Parliament, but the stated roles of Parliament are not what the people appreciate of the members of Parliament. And if you make a mistake and you stay on those cardinal roles of Parliament, I can bet you are very likely not to win another term. You are likely not to get elected again. What does Parliament do? What do members of Parliament do in this case? They do legislation, They do appropriation. This is the budget. They do oversight over the government programs. And then also they do MPs, they legislate, they do legislation, they do oversight, they do appropriation. I'll get the fourth role as we go along. So these are the cardinal ones stated that members of parliament should be doing. But what happens on the ground? The voters want MPs who are always with them. They drink with them. You are at the barrio with them. You pay fees for the children, for their kids to study. You are doing fundraisings for churches and mosques and others, etc. I know some former colleagues of mine, like from Karamoja and other places. Their homes are like the United Nations. Always their people, when they come to Kampala, they must reach his home or her home. Then from there, they pick up to go to other places in Kampala. As in the MP's home is like the headquarters of the constituency in town. And every other day, all your people are in the home. And this is how they feel it. This is how they feel a member of parliament must be. Now, do you want to know how parliament should facilitate me to take care of my constituents in Kampala when they come? Yes, somehow. In the breakdown of the emoluments of members of parliament, you are given an allowance to have a good house, a decent house, to also be able to conduct yourself around well. If you are, even if you are an MP from as far as Kitagwenda, don't reach Kampala and you become like a common villager. When you are walking around, you should be able to conduct yourself around in a parliamentary manner. If you sit with some people, you can afford to pay a little drink. I mean, to really help you conduct yourself around as a member of parliament. So, yes, this segregation is important at the start because from the point of view of civil society or political arguments, there are 4 cardinal roles a member of parliament is doing. But in practical sense, there are people I know. Sometime I made mention of some colleague member of parliament, former, in some place in Kisoro there. For him, all he does is he stays with the people. He's elected to be a member of parliament. So he's supposed to come and debate and legislate. In fact, the 4th one is representation. So an MP represents, an MP legislates, an MP does oversight, and the MP does appropriation, which is budget. It's during appropriation that you say, I have a road from Ivanda to Rangerza in Kitagwenda that I need to be put in the budget. But this colleague, this member I'm talking about, actually was re-elected again. Why? He's always close to the people. You will never see him in parliament. Even when they rate, this is his 3rd term, but for all the ratings, you get 0 for attendance, 0 for participation, etc. But they always elect him. What he does, he stays with the people, he drinks with them, he has a few homes in every trading center. When he's there, he stays there for the night, and people in the morning come and congregate around with him. They take porridge with him, they take breakfast. So we need to help to, I don't know what word to use, to accredit the kind of roles a member of parliament should do. That now leads me to the discussion of how best they can do their roles. Yes, the 200 million that has been allocated, to me, it's only the timing which I have as a problem to the 200 millions. Why? Currently, the Prime Minister has come through to say, hold a minute, you members of the public, come and help us, donate to us. We need money to manage COVID. I cannot be applying for help as a head of my home. And yet at home, we are having chicken, we're having beef, we're having really the most luxurious meals in the home. People think I'm not serious. I think that's where there is a bit of a problem. When the Prime Minister comes through and says, hold a minute, help us. Those who can donate, please donate some relief items, donate us money to help our COVID people, our COVID victims. That means government does not have money on its own, really doesn't have that much money to spend. So you prioritize your expenditure. Couldn't the money for the MP's vehicles stay for another quarter? Why would they have to get it this quarter? I mean, they do not come on foot. They have some vehicles they are driving. even then, when you give them that money, the 200 million, I don't think there will be few less than 20% who are going to get the vehicles worth that money. Many of them would stay with their old vehicles or will find a vehicle of 50 million or so that is habitable, that they can move, that is motorable, then they use it. So it's not as urgent. The money is okay, give it to them. But my question about it is the timing. Must you give it to them in this quarter when the Prime Minister has asked the public to donate money to help in the fight against COVID? I think that was not right. But if you dig into its detail, a member of parliament is also an employee of government. It's like an employee of government. They are leaders. They are elected to work for their people. If you pay the LC5 chairman salary and give them money to facilitate their work, there's no reason why you don't do the same for the members of parliament and others. However, they need to be aided. Aiding them means, if I come from Kitagwenda, why would I buy a Land Cruiser V8? These are comfortable vehicles for Cankara. I need a strong double cabin that can drive me up to Lake George, Lake Masiolo, then get me back only over the weekend, because the understanding is that almost actually two weekends in a month, you go to the constituency. So you need a strong car to take you there. Remember, government buys only brand new vehicles. Government buys mileage zero vehicles. So to give the MPs 200 million means they should find mileage zero vehicles worth 200 million, which is very difficult. Though, yeah, even double cabins, I think, are more than that if they are brand new. So, and government cannot own it. The moment you say government should buy for MPs vehicles, maintain them, give them drivers, do service them, etc., it's impossible. So you have an escape route for government. Say, this is 200 million for you. Go and find a vehicle that is suitable. Whether you buy a second or third hand for yourself as a member of parliament, remember, it's dealing with your life. I know some people so far, I have two members of parliament who, after receiving the 200 millions, one of them went to pay for some land somewhere worth 120 millions. Then he got off like 15 millions to buy a few items for relief for the people. And then he took pictures all over the radio that he has donated. Now that is finished. The vehicle, we don't know whether he will have the vehicle or not. So back to your question. How should government be able to facilitate or to enable these MPs to perform their roles? Number one, it is important to segregate and be concrete on what exactly you want the MP to do. If it is for the member of parliament to do representation, legislation, oversight, and appropriation, give them personal assistants who are exposed, who are experienced in their offices, that they help to discern this voluminous kind of work and interpret for them most of these difficulty reports. Then they can be able to speak with authority on the floor of the House. They will have done their part, really, because it all involves speaking. But if you would like this MP to also ground himself or herself with the people, then they need really good tested means of transport that can get them down. And this government is doing its part to give them. The only difference is, one, the 200 million they give them is not calculated at any rate that government, maybe government, if you give it back to government, government cannot get a water of 200 million that government buys. No, giving them to the MP, it's a lot of money. The MP will not spend all that money getting the vehicle. That's why some people chose to use it otherwise. So at the end of the day, to me, it will be easier if you really give the MPs the vehicles themselves to fulfill the purpose. Because now, Honorable Segirinya, Honorable and others, they have bought other things in lieu of the money. This one part of the money you don't account for in the parliament. You gave me money for the vehicle, thank you. If I come and appear and debate, then I have a vehicle. Whether I have a Chukumi, or I have a Mercedes, or I have a Volkswagen, it doesn't matter. So now, in order to create parity among them, to avoid populism, to be able to stabilize them to do their work, I think personally the government should find the appropriate vehicles to give these people. If your government, you believe that they can afford their vehicles of 200 millions, which are worthy, strong, that can be used, everybody should get a vehicle. that vehicle in real terms as a vehicle, such that you don't have the leeway of jumping here and there. Then two, when these vehicles are given, there is an arrangement in which members of parliament are expected to be going back to the constituency twice a month for 2 weekends, at least 2 weekends a month. That's the basis on which we get the emoluments. You see, the salary of a member of parliament is almost 3 times or 4 times. It's about quadruple the emoluments they get quadruple the salary. An MP gets about 11 or so millions for salary. If they cut off the obligations, you end up with the tax obligations, you end up with about 6.2 millions as salary for the month. Then where you get your money is emoluments, which is also meant for work. So 200 millions for the vehicles on one side, but the emoluments equally are meant for work. If you have given an MP about 5 millions for rent for a house in Cankara, why would an MP sleep in a shack? Because then they cannot work, because you have stress from home, you don't sleep well, you come to work, you can't work, and you have been facilitated for that. The same reason you find they get money to go to other countries to benchmark, South Africa, where it has happened several times, and they sleep in the most undesirable places. I mean, an MP is given $720 as per diem, as spending money and feeding when they're out of the country. But $720 on average is about to I'm trying to translate the dollar. The current dollar rate is about 3,600 vis-a-vis 700. It's about 2.5 million on average in my simple mathematics. So with 2.5 million Uganda shillings in your hands, and you are in London, you are in Johannesburg, you find yourself the cheapest lodge of about 200,000 or 100,000 Ugandan shillings. It's really embarrassing, but the point you are mentioning is enabling them to do their work, facilitating them to be able to do their work. Cars on one side, but also ensuring that they exactly use the emoluments is another. The best way you do this, Damian and colleagues, is to benchmark. How do others do it? In America, for example, in the US, the registration is at a certain time. Not all the time are you doing registration. So you come, you are frustrated for that period, then you go back. The current president, Joe Biden, used to board a train from his constituency, I forget the name, but very far from the center, from the parliament, on daily basis during the time of the sessions. I'm told there's a Cobra member of parliament. You see, the job is different from the registration. So the registration is part-time. We went to Zambia for benchmarking sometime. In Zambia, around parliament, there are hostels. When you come to town, to Lusaka, to work as a member of parliament, you are a visitor of the state. So the state allocates you some comfortable stay places. There's a hostel around, which is fair. It's good. It's about 2 bedrooms, then one big, it's a cottage or kind of or apartment where you stay for the time you have come. Your registration may take about 3 months. After the 3 months, you go back to your work and go and stay. When you're around, they facilitate you. You do what you are doing after. You go back to your constituency and do other things. The difference here in Uganda is that the member of parliament is a full-time job. That's why if you're a lawyer like me, you will not be allowed to represent, say, parliament in court or to involve yourself in a case against parliament as a lawyer, as an attorney in court, because it's a full-time job. But I think it's better when it's a part-time job. You come to parliament in specific times. After that time, then you go back to your original job. It also gives you time when you have gone back to your original job to go to the constituency, interact with the people, pick new ideas, and then prepare well and come back to them. This is my view.
The weather has changed a little, so I think it's affecting the connectivity, but we shall try to work with that. Let me bring on Benard. Benard, the Honorable has taken us through quite a lot what MPs actually, the stand of MPs vis-a-vis what Parliament should provide for them. From your area as a public policy analyst, what do you pick from this, and what do you think is the best way we can have the MPs operate in a smooth environment?
Thank you, Damian, and thank you, panelists. I think this is not the first time we're having this conversation. This conversation has been around for quite some time in this country. And Parliament, no doubt, plays a very, very critical role when it comes to delivering governance and ensuring that democracy prevails in any democratic country. Parliament plays a very critical role, especially with regards to its oversight function, which I think the Honorable has already clearly elaborated on it. But I want us to really understand that Parliament does not operate in a vacuum. Parliament operates in the space where it is fronted and it is brought to life by the citizens. When you look at the vision for Parliament of Uganda, for example, it says that a transformed, independent, and people-oriented Parliament. I think this vision speaks to the heart of what Parliament should actually be doing. The Parliament has clear roles and functions. Of course, there are other roles that Parliament, by nature of how the campaigns are being handled, by the nature of how people perceived what a member of Parliament should be, there's a lot of conflict between what a member of Parliament should do and what a member of Parliament is actually doing. So in many cases, you find a member of Parliament, instead of focusing on its constitutional mandate that is provided within the constitutions, they're also being engaged in other activities. For example, the Honorable mentioned issues of attending funerals. Others are providing or buying health equipment. Others are buying ambulances. So because of the nature of our people, you find a member of Parliament engaged in this conversation, in these activities. But how does that affect our democratic growth? It's important. We must realize that parliamentary function is to provide oversight on the executive and how the executive is actually executing its mandate. Now, when you find a member of Parliament engaged in buying ambulances, for example, it conflicts the role of a member of Parliament, because then you will be asked, if Parliament has appropriated funds to the executive to ensure that every health centers or every district should be able to have ambulances, for example, and you as a member of Parliament, you've already purchased these ambulances, to what extent are you going to account for this? Now, I come from Gulu, and one of our member of Parliament, then Honorable Regan Okumu, participated and has been known for facilitating women to give birth freely in hospitals. Now, it's a good charitable gesture, and it of course works for him, and has worked for him in his political endeavors and engagement with the local people. But that conflicts, because then you create a gap within a governance system where government sends drugs, for example, to facilitate those processes. And because the citizens or the women that you facilitated are able to access these services free of charge, then you as a member of Parliament, you will lack the ability to challenge government or to offer critique to government or to challenge government on how these issues are being done. In any case, it also provides a gap that the health practitioners actually steal government drugs, because then the services are being offered afterward has been discounted by the area member of Parliament. So you find yourself in that situation where Parliament has confused its role. And I think this is a conversation that we really must focus on, because to what extent, how far are we going to continue like this? For our democracy to grow, Parliament needs to focus on its core function so that it's able to hold government accountable for its responsibilities in the communities. So for me, I think that disconnect between the roles of members of Parliament and and how it should effectively do its work. It takes us back. Yes, emoluments and contributions are important part of it. And for members of parliament, by the way, to be, I'm one person who believes that for someone to be able to do their work effectively, they should be fully motivated. But to some extent, the motivation must be also contextualized. In the cases where we are now, we are in a pandemic. Okay, we're in a pandemic. It's a crisis. Damian, if your house is burning and it finds you sleeping naked in your bedroom or you're on a boxer, you will not get up and start looking for what to put on. You will get up and run, or get the basic things that you can do and run. For us who grew up in LRA in northern Uganda, we know very well how it is important. When you're in a crisis, you don't have this time, you don't have the luxury to think of other issues, okay? You should pick yourself and run. Now, we find ourselves, we're in a pandemic, and what Parliament is actually doing is prioritizing issues that are actually not very important or does not contribute to helping us combat this crisis. Well, it is important that members of parliament are provided transport to be able to facilitate them so that they can do their work effectively. But that should be done in a context. We're in a pandemic, and so many protagonists have argued here that they should be on a pro rata basis. Agaba has just hinted that when should we actually advance these funds to government. So it has to be in a context. Yes, we can actually advance them as loans. We can actually do it on a pro rata basis where not all members of parliament are supposed to get their benefits at this particular time, but they can get it as the term proceeds. But that also, that's a workable parameters. But again, as much as it's a workable parameter, it is because the law states that every member of parliament should be motivated. And so, yes, for now, I would have imagined if I'm a member of parliament, or if I'm a leader of opposition, or I'm a head of government business, these are the things we would be engaging in. So that, how do we work? Because we are running a pandemic. We don't have enough resources to be able to accommodate all budget overheads that we are supposed to meet as government. And so it is important that our priorities are made right. Thank you, Damian. Okay, maybe before I go off, the issue that parliament should actually work cautiously on, for me, I think it's the element of research. Yes, parliamentary functions are 60% within the parliamentary chambers, and 40% within the parliamentary chambers, and 60% at the grassroots. But also, we must also realize that the functions of parliament within the parliamentary chambers, I think Honorable will agree or disagree with me, is that 60% of the functions within parliament are actually handled within the committees and not in the parliamentary chambers. And so when you look at the functionalities within how government operates its work within the committee of parliament, you realize that the committees are fully funded, okay? Members of parliament are fully funded from within their transport, their work engagement, their research activities, and all that. In many cases, we have seen members of parliament, if they're going to perform oversight functions relating to health, they are transported and fuel are provided as a group of members of parliament going to perform such duties. And so the question of providing members of parliament this emolument for cars, it's important because members of parliament needs to move effectively to be able to do their work, but must be in context. In this case where we are, we're in a crisis, and I think the context with which it has been effected is wrong, and perhaps that should guide parliament for next course of action, because this may not be the last pandemic. This will not be the last pandemic. The world has faced pandemic before, and so it is important that members of parliament right now quickly develop a policy framework of how government can prioritize its budget and functions when it comes to, especially during a crisis or a pandemic like we're facing now. Thank you, Damian.
Thank you very much, Benard. And I would request that I try for now to use the audio possibly to get the connectivity. But thank you very much for that insight. And I'm sure the Honorable Agaba picked some issues that you will need to respond to at some point. But let me try to bring on Joseph. Joseph, you've at least been attentive for a long time and picked what both Honorable and Benard have said. And what stands out, of course, is with the 4 different roles of the parliamentarians, we see that there is pressure that is constantly mounted on these MPs in execution of their mandate. Where or what do you think should be the best approach to ensure that we have a smooth running legislative arm?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, this is a very, very important debate. I sort of like the context within which you've set up the title, because initially I thought it wasn't possibly relevant, but the more we think about it and have the discussion, the more clear apparent it is. I have written, I have said, and I've stated, and I've actually campaigned that the Ugandan National Assembly is a body with which is actually occupied by the majority of whom do not understand the role of parliament and parliamentarians. Abbas, I have argued several times that most of Ugandan legislators don't know what the role of a member of parliament is and possibly what the role of parliament is. I have said this for many years and have not said it in a manner in which it was in bad taste. I have personally sought to go to parliament. I am almost certainly going to be a legislator in future in this National Assembly. But the point is this, that from my experience, the kind of guys who end up there, some of them, and the manner in which work is done. And I think today's debate has actually brought it completely in context. One, the most important job for a member of parliament is representation. You know, that is why many legislators use words again and again and again that sometimes I'm quite uncomfortable with, quote, my people, almost as if we own them, you know. So the most important job is that constituencies send you to the National Assembly to represent their interests. Represent their interests, legislate for this state on their behalf, and then do everything else, including appropriation and oversight and things like that. Number one. Number two, quite clearly, the point as raised, which Abbas started with, the only reason why constituents hang around the homes and homesteads of legislators is because they, by and large, don't necessarily know these things. Abbas, you and I, and Mr. Museveni at the helm, we are the ones who are paid, you know, I'm not amongst them, paid and trained, and we claim we're in position to be able to know this. That's why we represent it. I'm saying it in a good way anyway, you know? So really, point is, a legislator, and Abbas, I've actually liked you without really patronizing. I actually think that you're one of the legislators, I think for some of the observations you've made, which are extremely important, and I want to be able to engage with you and others as we go forward, trying to change this country and improve this country. You know, it is our job to go in representing our people, to seek to demand. Those people are going to these people because there are no medical services, because there are no medical facilities. And I really love both of your observations about ambulances. One of my representatives here the other term was one of those guys who started with this Mina ambulance thing. I didn't know, surprise, people, quote, loved them, except some of them were saying that, oh, these guys are waiting for us to, when we are sick, to pay for ambulances and take us home. What about preventing this? So no, legislators' job absolutely are to ensure that hospitals have got medicine, hospitals are fully staffed, staff are well paid, hospitals are equipped, including with ambulances, and in cases where these ambulances are not there, legislators' job are to demand from respective ministers why ambulances are not only in my Tororo district or in my local Nagongore health facility, but to demand to know why there is none at Itojo Hospital because I legislate for the nation state. That is extremely important. Number two, very briefly on the point about transport. In fact, some thought has just come to me, Damien, that one of our campaigns, and Abbas joined me in this campaign, is that this transport nonsense thing should begin this way. It should be done like those days when I was at Makerere University, when government paid us to study, but above all, government paid us to transport ourselves home. And what they call TA, travel allowance, was when you're coming from Makerere University, you get more money if you're going to Tororo than the person in Ginger. The guy who's going to Kotido gets a lot more money. I think we must begin to consider some of these things, considering that we are a little tiny nation that survives on begging, and yet we spend. I totally agree. Legislators need transport. Let me give you, though, my quick broader global experiences. I was telling another media network only yesterday. The mother of the British Parliament, meaning, as Abbas would know, the longest serving female member of Parliament, is a personal friend of mine. I was her parliamentary chairperson twice for the Labour Party. But it is only in her car I have ever driven in. And that was, I think, 1998, I think, 78, when Barney Grant died, one of the other members of Parliament. And we rode in her car. And it was a modest car, Now, this is an upper middle class British top lawyer, one of the kingmakers who determined that Blair became not only the leader of the Labour Party, but campaigned together to make him the Prime Minister. In fact, one of those people for whom, at a press of button, he would talk to the Prime Minister. This is how important this individual is. But she was driving a modest car, number one. Number two, I have known her for now over 25 years. I don't know where her home is. I know the street. I have never had to go to her home, Now, surely, Abbas and myself, our jobs are to make sure that we organize, to reclaim this nation state and do it in such a manner that, once again, members of Parliament can be responsible, respected, and we're also given space like it used to be during the days of UPC government. Those days was when you provide for education, you provide for health, you provide for transport. I demand to know why there are no train services from Nagongara to Kampala. Things like that. Those are the things that members of Parliament should be doing. Really, right now, legislators should be demanding how much have been collected for COVID as donation. How much has been collected as grants? How much have we borrowed? Where has it gone? Why don't we have these monies? So you're absolutely right. It makes it even worse that the timing is just absolutely damn insensitive. I have yesterday sent somebody 6,000 shillings. This is a reputable Ugandan of a former civil servant, basically needing money to survive when he asked me for 5,000. Happens, I didn't have more money on my mobile money. Asking for it, why? Because of COVID. I know a teacher in my group, my social group, and without prejudice, Damien, and there is this assumption that people in the West and Westerners are doing well. One other person, a civil servant from Western Uganda, who's a friend of mine, listen, UPC guy, this guy had to request through one of the social media places, his sister is in hospital and they're looking for fundraising. Why? He's stuck for all these COVID times. He's not been able to get paid. They don't know how to live. And these are young couples. This is what we're talking about in our country, So I think who are the best saviors on this? They're legislators. I think a situation in which you and I go to Parliament, we should go to Parliament to change Parliament. We should go to Parliament, and Abbas is absolutely right. What were you riding on? What were you driving? How were you arriving at Kampala to print those posters of yours that now that you've landed at Kampala, you actually don't only need hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of shillings, but 200 million, when actually a 20 million car is good enough to keep me between here and Kampala. So those sort of really are the issues. Now, ordinary citizens of today, the majority that Abbas Agaba has represented, they have no clue. That is one of the reasons why my slogan is that it is better, this country, it is possible rather, if only we believe in better. Meaning the majority of Ugandan citizens don't know that governments provide medical services. They don't know that they pay taxes. They don't know that this 3.5 trillion shillings is going to be paid back, not by our immediate children, but possibly their great-grandchildren, paying back. They don't know that it's going to have implications on whether or not we have money to invest next year on infrastructure or indeed in education. They don't know. It is our job to be able to do that. And quite frankly, the last most important job is this. That is absolutely unfortunate that many of the people we have these days are people in politics rather than politicians. I hope people are able to join UPC members to become politicians, so therefore that we deliver for people, represent people's interests, rather than go into politics to use politics for our own survival. When we have politicians, at least in this nation state called the Republic of Uganda, it will be possible, in my opinion, that in situations like this, we use it as a taste where we're able to learn how to do things better, where we're able to take lessons for what and things that have gone wrong. Again, I was actually trying to tell friends earlier, this COVID situation should really have been able to bring this country and bring all of us as citizens closer together rather than putting us apart. I think that's really, really exposed not only the hypocrisy, but I think the selfishness of a few. Now, I don't know where some of my good colleagues, and I know a number of members of parliament, and some of them are very close friends, personal friends, in fact, but I don't know in the broader sense why we have not had people who would actually take the view that Abbas was taking, that guys, I think it's rather insensitive, the timing is bad, let's wait. And then the final point, I think I was on another program elsewhere. It could easily have been possibly the case that the older legislators simply say that, well, let's do these things and maybe provide some kind of relief to the newer people who came in so recently, carry out some kind of mini kind of audit. I know it would be very difficult to police, particularly in this very corrupt nation state under NRM. Very, very difficult to make things right. But it is possible to be able to do this. So in such a manner, maybe we would have said that, well, who are maybe the 10, 20, or 30, 50 members of parliament who are in the biggest crisis? How can we help them while we possibly hold back? And final point, COVID times was a time across the world where leaders, political and otherwise, sacrifice, offer, time when we say that public services like water, people should not be cut off. Times when we subsidize, no taxes for national waters, which I actually saw in my bill the other day. Apparently, we are taxed. We really, really shouldn't. But above all, a situation in which we say people take 80% salaries. Really, the guys at the top, like Mr. Museveni, instead of asking for 10 billion for his new convoy, surely he should be saying that he's having a salary freeze for 2 years, particularly him who says that he's been rich since the 60s. Just some food for thought for you.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for that. Thank you for taking us through that roller coaster. I don't know. I know Agaba is being provoked so much, and I want you to come on just to respond to the issues that have been raised by Benard, and also those that have come out clearly by Joseph, and so that we get to the other second part of our conversation.
Well, thank you, Damian, and my colleagues, the panelists. I like the arguments, really. In Parliament, there are some times when there is no opposition side and then the ruling party.
I know you lucky guys.
Some motions come and it's Uganda United.
And it becomes very boring.
This must be one of them.
Especially when it's a moment, really. I saw the leader of opposition. I saw the leader of opposition on one of the TV shows about the 200 million. I said, hey, hold a minute. So sometimes things change. Because I thought he would, yes, he defended the MPs being facilitated. I agree entirely. Because MPs must have money to do their work. But
yes,
to the timing, really, and I think that's where he lost the argument. The timing of giving the money when government is appealing for donations was wrong. It could have been delayed a little. Because the leader of opposition is a member of the parliamentary commission that gives this money. So I parted with him at that point. But yes, I can understand. Joseph, you see, we are not at crossroads per se, but there is a turning point. Our hopes cannot be in the members of parliament. I have said this before and I will say it again. Politics is very different from other engagements like academics and similar. In politics, it is the quantity that you bring on board, not the quality in you as an individual. So you could be a professor, Professor Latigo, my friend, very highly accredited professor, very highly revered in the international. But the other time he stood for election, he came, was leader of opposition. When he went back, he lost. Okay? His quality. Okay, I don't mean that the one who replaced him had issues. No, but I mean he's somebody substitute. Then this time he was back. When he went back, he left. He didn't come back. So in politics, it's the numbers that you can garner, the numbers that you can bring on board. Whether you gather them using the most obnoxious methods. I mean, people really, their tribes mates around them, their religion mates around them, their etc. friends around them, not based on the merit, on the competence in that person. And two, in politics, it's not merit really that will help you rise to the top. No, it is loyalty. I'm sure, Joseph, you know this. UPC had some quality people, but I think on top of that, they were loyal people. But most times, loyalty weighs in more than merit to have people, for people to raise. So you may have hope, but little hope in politicians leading the change that you want to see. It must not necessarily be change of government, change of the leadership. No, but the change in perception. Our people need to appreciate the role of leadership. It is
changes in practice. People, you're right. Yes.
Yes. What's the value of a leader? When I come as your leader, as Abbas in the village, in the constituency, I am happy to interact with you, to share a drink with you. But let's talk about fighting poverty. Why do we share the drink? Than just giving you the drink, you get boozed up and you are like, yeah, our man, please lead until you die. Really? Yeah, if you give me that to be in parliament until I die, I'll be very happy. But you, as my voter, you not have benefited much. Now, the core point is the leaders are voted from amongst the people, and therefore, to a large extent, they are largely like the people who vote them. So that's why, again, the point I started with, when you appear so different from the people you lead, it's very unlikely that they'll vote you again. The example of the professor I gave is understandable. He's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. I hope the next time he's in. It's just that people want to vote those who are like them. You go to when they sing the good songs, you come out and dance with the people. When you go for the burial, you should sleep at the burial, and they see you say, yes, the man slept here. You know, or if you can't, at least the condolence, whoever takes it must speak for him. So it's the bigger picture that we need to transform our people from this. It's not only in Tororo, it's not only in Kitagwenda, the whole country is thinking like this. And you know what has happened? People who would provide quality, who would be quality people in leadership.
To ask you, where is the problem? Where is the problem?
The problem is with the masses. We need a paradigm shift. We need perception change. We need to speak to the people to appreciate that we can do better than what we are in. For example, how will people vote quality leaders? It is for them to know that when you go to parliament, it is to lobby for government services, because government is a government for everybody. We want a person who will speak for the hospital and they'll build it, speak for the road and they'll build it, speak for it, our circle, and we get money like that. Other than the one we drink with every day. This is where it starts from. Number two, the people to know that even if a leader has given me 5,000 for today, tomorrow I need my own money. So I must.
Honorable, income. Just to interject. Honorable, yes. Just to interject, I want to ask, where did we have this shift from relegating our MPs to providing things that the local government should be providing? Where did we go wrong?
I may not be very accurate in answering this question because you need a good tracer on how things change. But to my own understanding, from the time of the Constituent Assembly, 1995 Constitution, 2000, the MPs I would see and I would admire. I want to be as good a legislator as that. But when the time came for money to take over from merit, and I cannot trace at what point because it was progressive. Maybe in Tororo this year, this election it takes over. The other day, in some way, it takes over. The moment people stopped seeing the quality, the brain in you, and then they go with your money, and then they are loyal enough to vote for you. What, Joseph, you are talking about, in Makerere, we used to say that the door, the mouth is the door to the brain. And therefore, whatever comes through it reflects on what is there. If you went for a rally and you just spoke trash, people just walked out from you, even if you are very good, even if you had a lot of money. I have not heard of a person who has won election in Makerere or some even these other institutions just because they are loaded. But to come and make the point, explain to the people, show them what needs to be done and how you do it. This is not what people are following now. The money, it's a money economy, it's a money election, it's money in politics. And if you don't have the money, even if you have the best ideas, you really, people don't find that value in you. It's important to take note of it. Then 3, yes, we need our focus on service delivery. I agree entirely. And for your benefit, the emoluments given to members of parliament, just as the transport allowance you were talking about was calculated, the one that comes from the farthest end will get the highest because it's a fuel fund kind of. You remember sometime we had an argument that MPs don't pay taxes. The money you're giving me for fuel is exact. I need 200 liters to travel from here to Jinja and back, if I'm a member of parliament for Jinja municipality, to travel to the farthest point in Jinja and back. And that's what you have given me. But then when I pay for it at the petrol station, when they remove the tax, I'll pay the taxes. Again, you want to tax the money before you give it to me. There was an idea of double taxation, but anyway, that one was dealt with. The other point, when a member of parliament concentrates on performing the cardinal roles of being a member of parliament, I can be honest with you, he just give up for the next term. Go and represent, legislate, appropriate, oversight. Finished. Those who want to unseat you are already in the village. What are they doing? They sleep at the funeral and they talk a lot. You know, local brew is not very expensive. They buy and people become happy. So this is our person. He's the one who's always with us. So a person needs to blend. Yes, blend with the traditional roles, but also blend with the people's expectations. I mean, be there to balance. You need to balance. And for those of us who come from constituencies far away from Cankara, it becomes a very difficult job. You are on the road all the time. On the road all the time, you don't know what happens on the road. And when something goes wrong and you go, I mean, it is your family that stays to suffer the consequences. The working in committees, I agree. Much of the work happens in committees, but the question is, how many of those MPs attend committees? They are few because it shifted from being paid for attendance to being paid as long as you're a member of parliament. So whether you come and sign into the chamber to debate or not, basically you'll be paid. Except for committee meetings, there was a separate payment schedule on which you are paid allowance for sitting in committee meetings. By the way, some members of parliament will come and get the book and they peruse through it, okay, and see the past meetings they didn't attend. If there is space, the man puts the name and fills up the... So sometimes you are like, you guy, on this date you were in Zambia on a benchmark mission. How come you also assigned that you attended? But this is just to overemphasize the point that the people vote for those who are like them. We are voted for among the people. So we need to focus the idea of change at another level. Maybe the technocrats, if we're able to deal with the corruption at the level of the technocrats, they may be a more sure way of driving the country to another direction. But for members of parliament, it's very difficult. You're supposed the parliament should check the executive. But tell me, how many members of parliament have the guts to ask questions? Just to ask questions, governance questions at parliament. You know, when you come to go to parliament, now we form what we call caucuses. You have the NRM caucus, you have the DP caucus. I don't know how many members are now left for the UPC caucus, Mr. Ochieno, but they also the UPC caucus.
We are 9 and more than NRA had in 1980. So that's very consoling.
Is Betty still with you, or she's this way now? Betty Among.
I don't know about
Where is Betty Among? I think Betty already left long time ago.
You have caucuses. You sit in the caucus and then you take a decision. when you go to the floor of the House, it's the position of the caucus to be defended. Now, I don't know how many members of parliament have the guts to even ask questions in the caucuses. Because the caucus is the precursor to the discussions on the floor, and then they're passing the policy. Sometimes even a decision is taken on the floor of the House. But when you caucus again, say, hey, here there was a mistake made, please, even that decision should be followed with another decision that modifies it. So this is how politics is. And you know, at level of parliament, everybody is fighting for majority on their side. Number two, whipping those you have to keep loyal to you. Unfortunately, when opposition whips, they can't whip effectively because regularly the yellow mangoes, the yellow bananas are glaring. So if there's something good, the other side, even if you whip someone much, it might not be effective. But this does not mean that we lose hope. The parliament is a great institution. It can really do the oversight. It can ask questions. But we as the voters, the local people on the ground, must send the people who can ask the questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable. And I think that sends us off that part of the segment. We are into the second hour of our conversation, and I would want to bring it close to the behavior around Parliament. And Benard, I want to invite you here. The effectiveness of Parliament is possibly determined by the behavior of the individuals within there, within it. Have also possibly holding the government to use the relevant procedures effectively, but also to have incentive.
Thank you, Damian. I've struggled to listen to what you're saying. I think you are breaking. I've struggled to listen to your questions. I've picked the overall concept, but so let me just continue.
Okay.
Hello, Damian. Are you able to
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, go on.
Yes, I picked the overall
yes, I can hear you.
Concept of the question. So let me say this. Politics and leadership are in one way or another intertwined. But when you become a leader, you must be able to differentiate between the two. Now, and the unfortunate bit we find ourselves in now is that our politicians, when they are politicking, yes, it is okay. There are many ways that politicians use to reach into power, and I agree with Agaba that in politics, numbers that takes the day. But I think it is important that when we ascend to power, we must know that now we are in position of leadership. And when you're in position of leadership, you must be able to make the right decisions at any one particular time. And so the politics, the politicians that we find ourselves in, their behavior in any way, in several ways are influenced by the people that they represent. And of course, the leaders that we have now are a product of the communities, okay? And not necessarily a product of the communities, but also a product of community and the processes that they go through. You find in many occasions, our politics or our political campaigns have been monetized. And so the politicians, when they are canvassing for these votes, they are actually engaged in a lot of bribery activities, a lot of issues that actually compromises our democratic practices. And so that is why when they eventually make it to parliament, their behaviors in many ways are influenced because they're a product of a process they actually engaged in. And that takes us to the question of defining where do I stop politicking and where do I start effective leadership? Yes, in our political system, it may be difficult to disintegrate the two, but it is important that we should always act in the right way. For example, a question of wrong. Agaba raised a concern that politics is about allegiance. Where does your loyalty rest? Okay. Now that takes us back to the question of, for example, if we look at the recent fund that was given to Parliament, the 200 million, you find there are other people that are ex officio, okay? the other members of parliament that are ex officio, and they of course benefited. But where is their loyalty rest? Is their loyalty with the people or with the executive? And if their loyalty is with the people, who should fund their loyalty? Should it be funded by the people or should it be funded by the executive? And so that is why, if the emolument was given, for example, in that case, given to even all members of parliament, including the ex officio, but ex officios actually have their allegiance to the executive. And so, to a greater extent, one can argue that the funds such as this should actually be facilitated by the executive, which actually the executive has done it. In most cases, these ex officios are ministers. They have cars, okay? And so that actually falls on its own merit. So that is where the question of allegiance is actually very important. But the behavior of the members of parliament, they must become leaders. If you're a leader, you know what right and what wrong to do. So as much as you're a product of your own processes, defining critically what you're supposed to do is important. Now, yes, we have already members of parliament that came through a processes that actually making them behave the way they do, but it is actually within their right and they're in the rightful position to actually change this, okay? There should be laws that can be developed that govern our elections, okay? How should our elections be funded? And what should be a clear structural systems through which a politician actually should campaign, and there should be a clear mechanism of enforcing these processes, because we cannot continue lamenting over these issues. We cannot continue lamenting over wrong and right. Wrongs are wrongs and rights are right. So it will take a serious paradigm shift. And I think this parliament has within its wisdom and mandate to take some of these cautious decisions to be able to make a paradigm shift on how members of parliament should behave, both within the parliamentary chambers and also when they're in constituencies. But again, Damian, I want to raise these issues. You see, you asked Agaba, where was the challenge? Where did we find ourselves differing from a clear pathway that we should take? A semi-authoritarian or a dictatorship, perhaps the common narrative that most people now refer to NRM government is that it is a dictatorship. So when you find a government that has lasted in power for quite a long this while, they actually ride on the vulnerability of the masses. And so I disagree with Agaba that the problem is actually with the masses. The problem is with us, the leaders, who have actually created an environment or a social structure or a social economy that actually make our people very unempowered. And so if the masses are unempowered, then you find yourself that the people that you actually lead turn into beggars. This government has been in power for the last 35 years. Go and track back their budgeting and expenditure priority. Agaba, I'm sure you know this. You realize that our government for the last 35 years, a greater percentage of their budget financing has been taken by classified or security expenditures, as opposed to social empowerment structures. Okay, and even if the little that is appropriated to ensure that the communities are actually empowered and rich in one way or another, the money is corrupted. Okay, by the same system of governance system within which has been created to make sure that. So the whole essence here is that a government that stays in power usually rides on the vulnerability of people. And this government, I can tell you without a fear of contradiction, has demonstrated that over time. That is why our poverty rate is still, it's quite high, okay, both at family level. Yes, of course, there has been initiatives that has been put in place to ensure that. But I think we need to be serious when we try to make these initiatives. We have had a Myoga Fund, we've had Youth Livelihood Fund, we've had several funds that have been put in place. Now we have the parish model that is coming into effect. But look at the extent of its funding and look at the extent of the accountability that is exhibited. Look at the extent of how these programs are implemented and evaluated and ensure that it actually reaches the intended impact. You find that is zero.
Benard, right there.
Yeah.
Benard, Right
Yes.
there. I yesterday evening over a talk show, I had the Director of Communications of Parliament, Chris Obore, saying that where the problem started on MPs are shifting, they're relegating their roles into responsibilities that are supposed to be for local government, it's mainly because of how much the civil society has gone into the communities and commercialized all the engagements in the communities, that each time a civil society people get into the communities, they pour a lot of money there. So this has changed the mindset of the people down there, that you can't even convene them without giving them something. So is the problem now the civil society, according to the Director of Communications?
It's unfortunate to hear such an argument being founded. I think NGOs have in many ways contributed to this government. They have actually gone to fill the gap where government has actually not performed effectively, and it is a wrong narrative, and I would not encourage anyone to really escalate such a narrative. The NGOs have done this government in many ways a service. Okay, the unfortunate bit of it is that the political system, how it has been coined, is that they view NGOs as people that oppose or are trying to compromise their leadership. Of course, there are other issues, but to a larger extent, you find that these NGOs are fit into spaces where government has failed. Okay, and even if these NGOs have been in the field to offer these extra services where government has actually been sought in terms of providing providing services, the NGOs have done well. So the MPs should not give us, it's like you're trying to hide from the reality, okay? You're trying to hide from the reality. And I think we should take this in good faith that if you are a member of parliament that is elected, it is within your moral rights to actually enact laws that actually change the status quo. Now, there are caucuses within parliament that actually leads to most of these laws that are being fronted. So it is important that we act in good faith as leaders to change the status quo, because we cannot continue. So the narrative that NGOs have actually changed the perceptions and the views of our local people is because government has failed to provide the services that they're supposed to actually do. So it is important that if government could have that political will to actually advance its services to the people in the manner in which they have been created, or for the purpose with which they have been created, then actually NGOs would have less to do, okay? So the vulnerability has been created by the government. And so the NGOs are actually trying to correct this vulnerability that are within the government. But members of parliament should not use that as an excuse to actually do roles that are not expected out of them. Damian.
Yeah, thank you very much. Joseph, your thoughts on this?
No, just very quickly, I'll put a bit of a rejoinder on that. Abbas, you want to have war with me, my brother? I thought we were going to be part of this. No, it is absolutely erroneous to blame the citizens. But as a point of vantage that I have, that I'm slightly older, I want to say this to Abbas. The kind of things that we're talking about are not based on my experiences elsewhere alone, but that purely that these things have ever happened in this country. And like Benard is trying to be rather diplomatic about it, it's, I think, very unfortunate that citizens who are really the leading victims of this should be sort of blamed iota. I have experienced this during electoral politics with them, but they're really absolutely not to be blamed. This blame, I'll put in context. When NRM came to power in 1985, together with the DP, they banned political parties. So once political parties was banned, and once they continued with the policies of personal merit and killing the names of body politics and politics altogether, with a big struggle, as we campaigned for return to multipartyism, these guys entrenched monolithic personal merit politics. Now, personal merit politics is very much around the individual and what the individual can or cannot do. To the extent, therefore, that we reach a stage in which a young, beautiful lady in Nagongera, well-dressed, comes and picks a microphone either in a funeral or in a wedding, and they say, she's our lady, kind of stuff. And when they come in a posh, good car, and is seen to be able to give a lift to one or two people, yes, she is very kind. After all, we are going a long distance. The public buses from Nagongera, Buesa, and Busolwe have been killed. The public train from Nagongera to Kampala has been killed. The plane service from Tororo to Entebbe has been killed. So people see nothing but really this young lady as hope. So that is how this government started by failing. Now, actually, even when they brought in the air politics of 2001 with the messages, which I still blame them, banning political parties, it was still around very much individual merit. Now, what happened, like you saw with the people lining behind people, it is simply, what have you got for me? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? Now, I'll cut it short. Once then political pluralism came thanks to UPC 2004, November, I think Abbas was still not yet in Parliament when we killed Article 269. What happened is that all of a sudden Ugandans woke up to the reality of pluralism. But let me give you a bit of a small lesson. Political parties are driven by values, and that's why I was trying to talk about political values, are driven by values and representations. So politicians who will emerge out of UPC are driven already by the fantastic values that UPC represents, the leadership and the cream of what UPC would others represent. Same would be with DP, or indeed NRA if it chooses to become a political party. So really what happens is that by the time somebody emerges as Demiano Masesa to become a parliamentary candidate for, say, Kabale Central, Demian comes with sets of values, and in that way, he will not go and become a yes man in a committee fearing asking questions, but he will be driven by the values that has brought him up and that has actually nurtured him into an active politician. So therefore, I would say this. Just imagine this. Politics of allegiance, which NRA has done, versus politics of values. That's what I'm saying. But finally, let's just put it this way. Equip hospitals, I just want to repeat again, equip the hospitals, return our public service buses, return all the medicine and medical facilities, make education relatively free and competitive for all the citizens of this country, create jobs and employment, not only for the young people in this country, but make it possible for my uncles not to go through the experience my father went through when he couldn't get his pension, and yet even for his pension, it had got to be stolen and looted. Meaning people are helpless in rural places. Do all these other things. My uncles will now become respectable citizens who can't even come to terms with asking Ochieno for money for fares to Tororo. Once we do that, you realize that ordinary citizens of this country that we're blaming are back to the men and women with the dignity as they used to be. And in that way, their MPs will be those that represent them. They'll pick up young men and women who are beautiful in presentation, decent, represent their values from Nagongera, and they are proud to associate with them that this is going to be our voice when they hit Kampala, not only representing our views, but also we're carrying out oversight because we trust them, but above all, legislating for Uganda because we know they're Nagongera boys and girls, but they are really, really Ugandans. That's sort of the brief context of what this conversation is all about. And for that, I still believe it's possible for us to change the mindset. And mindset will have to be from leadership.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ochieno. I right there, Honorable, what is happening today, and many theories are coming out clearly. Okay, people would want to believe that government, just in this pandemic here, this second wave, they failed to offer relief to the people as expected into the lockdown. So what they had to do is they had to in a way blackmail the MPs by dropping the 200 million on their account, in the context that the MPs will feel pressurized to actually spend that money to buying cars. So there was a mindset, or there was at the back mind, the reverse psychology that, of course, the MPs would now use that money to buy what the people want. They would go into giving relief. Yeah. So in a way, getting back the money to the people using the MPs. But this is where we are, and you had already talked about this. Are these the right priorities to say that the MPs actually should get this 200 million to buy the cars, especially where we have struggling Ugandans who are locked up and are trying to look for survival? Are we getting our priorities right as a country?
Damian, if that were true for government, then they have succeeded. If it were true, because the people are needy. You see, government has attempted to give relief to few. Even the few, you can believe me, there's a very big problem. I couldn't believe it, that there are more than 60,000 numbers, are there 60,000 numbers that received money and were not registered? Others received more than twice. Others received whatever they received. Now, when you go in a home, because the money came on mobile money, the husband receives the money and does not tell the truth at home whether the money has come or not. So the family is waiting for relief up to now. They have not received. But the money is the man received the money already. Others received it, quickly went and bought a kilo of meat to check that a bit, to feel happy a bit. You know, Africans, we have that.
The question of now accountability. Also, parents you want to check whether they can account
places where
or not.
both the wife and the husband got the money and each one of them kept quiet. Did you get? I haven't got. I'm also waiting. So on the other hand, when you say that, I can believe you. I can believe you. The timing of giving this money to the MPs wasn't really very good, because it's a time of crisis. And even when you receive it, okay, some may be economic enough. They use the money for something and also put off something to give their people. Remember, there are only 500,000 people that government targeted to help in the mobile money process method. And those are mainly in townships. So for those in constituencies, in the villages, I enjoy how Joseph is talking about Nagongera. I'm sorry. It might make you happier to know that I used to be RDC for Utareja.
It's so all your fault then.
So that other hospital in Busole, we really made the noise for it those days, that they can make it better, and I used to use that.
The one we built for you for information.
The one UPC built.
Yes.
Of course, and many others. Of course, others will also fight.
Good man.
Because so the approach of giving them money at such a timing, if it was deliberately planned, then it worked. But I don't think it was, because even the MPs themselves have been putting pressure. You see, the moment you come in, part of the first relief you need need the earliest money you can get to also freshen up. As a member of parliament, there are debts talking like this from the campaign, everything. So somebody who is looking for the earliest he can get to and end here, because of course the salary is there, but if you walk around Parliamentary Avenue, you see MPs have problems, but people don't know. If you walk around Parliamentary Avenue, you have high-class money lenders.
It's actually very exhausting to be a member of Parliament.
We have high-class money lenders, and they are always walking around Parliament. Can I give you? Can I give you? Because they know when you give an MP money, payment is guaranteed. They will go to the accountant and then deal with him on how they cut your money before you even get it. So MPs, they have really their problems. But to me, the problem, we need a bigger solution than it is. Yes, we can argue back and forth until tomorrow, especially on where the problem is. Let's get the central government off, really, and look at the local government on the ground. When two candidates come to seek councillorship, and one of them has some money and the other one is broke, the one with money will make the way quickly before the broke one. The same for parliament, the same for others. We need to disinfect whoever brought the problem is there. Okay? Whoever brought the problem is there. We need to see how we deal with it, such that we get back on the drawing board. Because where are our children going? You go to schools, campaigns, where young children are bringing fruits, they are bringing what to give people. When they are campaigning, I just, one time I said to myself that I wish I had authority. In the Ministry of Education, you do limit campaigns as much as you can. We don't know what these young people are going through. My son the other day wanted to be a prefect in the primary school. Then he said, you make for me posters, you buy for me this, buy for me the other. I told him even posters you don't need, because you are going to be voted by those who know you. They're always around you. Why do you? He really cried for it. I withdrew from the responsibility. I just realized the mother passed behind and made him some few posters. And then he took. But I had refused, because why do you need posters to campaign for among people whom you're always saturating around? This is where it starts from, really. And this is our country. These are our children. Yes, I agree with you. There are some leaders we have who are not good role models. We have grown up seeing some people, and you are like, I would like to be like so and so. I mean, there are many who have been around, and they have been good people, and you say you like to be like so and so. But now, on the market in Uganda, many politicians, as you check this way, there's a scratch here. As you check this side, there's this way. So there are not many good role models for our children if we don't give them the time ourselves to mentor them. But that's on one side. So we must keep training them. We must keep on. Really, people need to understand that what we are talking about, we need service delivery. Let's make the roads. Let's have the hospitals function. Let's have the medicine there. But to you, the voter, if the hospital is made for you and the medicines are there, are you really willing to vote for this man who helped the hospital to be made without him giving you money, or you still go for the money man even when this one has performed for you? It's a
Gabriel,
crisis.
I mean, Demian.
Yes, Joseph.
Sorry, let me just interject very briefly. I'm so sorry, Abbas. Actually, you are with me on that. I sort of want to tell you that they will vote for you if you go out and tell them that you lobbied. In fact, the other day, I think about last week, I bumped on one of the NRM councillors for Toro district for my area. And the guy was actually quick to try and claim responsibility. I'm just saying it on air for quote, transferring, getting the OC police transferred because the guy's been around for a long time. When I actually know very well the circumstances around this. And he was really saying it around border people. Why? Because he wants the votes. Look, if we are able to do that and influence it, like I have directly influenced reconstruction, refurbishment of certain main roads, people generally respond to these things and it works. Abbas, I'm generally saying that if we begin to take this route, it will work. Final quick point, Demian, and for Abbas and my other colleague, Benard. In other countries, like in Britain, there's what they call members' inquiries. Yeah. Now, I was both a senior and a principal local government officer, and at the same time, a politician and a political activist for a governing political party. When a member of parliament writes a letter to a head of department of any organization, members' inquiries is a special part of a job, responding to them, including the technicalities, the inquiries, the researches. People, senior officers, principal officers panic if a member of parliament has actually written to say, my constituents has written asking for ABC, who has come to me, who has rang my office saying such a thing. What is happening? This guy is quick. I am completely determined that a future UPC government will ensure that these things work and legislators are able to legislate so that they are respected and, in fact, almost close to feared by public organizations, particularly those public organizations who fail to do what? Fail to deliver their services, their jobs, knowing very well that members' inquiries are an eye on behalf of government and indeed directly of the people.
Well, Joseph, I like
you're finishing. You might not take.
Yes.
Sorry, Abbas, sorry.
I like your
you're still on.
Yes, I like the analogy. I like the inference. I wish we could have more formal institutions, more formal ways of moving forward. I know in the UK, by the way, what you talked about that members, you even do not know the house of one of the members of parliament you have worked with for a long time. In the UK and most of these advanced democracies, when we go there and you interact with the members of parliament, they give you a card with just email address. So I was embarrassed with the colleague. What is your? They say, no, it is here. This I contact the email address, and he's convinced the email address is sufficient. This is a process. I mean, it's a process we are going through. But the point is, for example, here in Uganda, we had the Prime Minister's question time in our parliament. Last parliament, we had the Prime Minister's question time, and really, it is meant to be like the Prime Minister's question time of Britain. You put the Prime Minister to task to explain. Why hasn't the Nagongera Road been made for this long? You were there in 96, 2000, it's promises and it's promises of air. Now, during the 10th Parliament, Dr. Rugonda was so comic. He would say, when you ask a hard question, say, look, this is your government, this is our government. Everything will be done. So don't worry. If it has not been done, we are going to make sure that... So he would comfort. And everybody got used to it. And it appeared as if the Prime Minister's question time had lost.
That is my senior OB. Leave him alone.
So you know what has happened now? The Prime Minister's question time almost has no value at all because you have to write the question and submit the Prime Minister's office. They read it and then she comes back to answer it. It changes because the Prime Minister's question time was supposed to be spot on. Hey, you Prime Minister, you are the head of government. You have been promising electricity for Kitagwenda for 20 years. Where is it? Then they respond. But now you write it, then they research, then they come and respond. So you don't even have to ask, you can now ask supplementary questions. We had the same procedure, but not with Prime Minister's question time. What I was saying, me, I am convinced, I agree with you, colleagues, and we can change. But we need to work with the current setting as it is. Because you see, when the brain has a problem, they do a surgery. They don't get the whole brain away and then they give you another one. You may not easily find one to replace the one you have with, but they make a surgery. In law, we call it severance. We sever. We get out what doesn't work and then try to work on what works. We need to work with the current setting as it is to build our people's confidence that this person who has lobbied for you schools to be taken up by government as government-aided secondary schools has empowered you longer because now you will not be paying school fees or you'll be paying very little money for fees. So he deserves your vote because he can lobby for you more things than the one who come and then make them line up for 2,000, 3,000. Tomorrow they vote for them and then they are duped forever. This is my thinking. Damian.
Yes, I've been following through. So I want to ask. So do you mean that at this point it should all, because then that means that the local government should be seen, the LOC 5 but now at this point we are seeing MPs taking over all this responsibility. And what I want to also ask Benard at that point, the resources that have been allocated right now, the man. Yes.
Damian, the problem we're dealing with now is populism. Populism. Everyone wants to be in everything because the people's focus is there. A councillor is claiming responsibility for the transfer of the DPC because the DPC has been a problem. But whether he has any connection to the transfer or not, but he wants to appear popular before the people. These days, when a school, when a hospital is going to be constructed in the constituency, the MP will know from Cankara, the minister will know. Then the LOC 5 will have to be attached. Then the councillors will be attached. LOC 3 will be attached. Even LOC 1, they all come as a whole team. But whoever is talking will say, now I brought you the hospital. You LC3 councillor, where did you go to get this hospital from? They were, now, for you member of parliament, because you are in Kampala running around robbing, people are claiming what you have robbed in the village. And the villagers are gullible. The people in the village, they are gullible. When they see the LC3 councillors want talking about it, you might be like, if you are senior 6 and it stands against you, it becomes very difficult. Because how do you undo the lie? Because the question is, how does the councillor even have capacity to lobby for a hospital? But it has been brought, and when he receives, he says, yes, I'm the one. So you find even LC5 chairpersons conflicting with members of parliament because of claiming what has been. Sometimes it's even done by government and nobody knows. From nowhere, you find somebody claiming it, hey, I'm the one who did it. I lobbied for a mesh fence for my place because we border the national park. Now, when it was being put by the Wildlife Authority, Uganda Wildlife Authority, the minister came there and then they gave it. As they were going to give it, they said, hey, hold a minute. Abbas has brought people to claim your land because they are going to put it deep inside your land, off the lake. People now are like, hey, how can they connive to bring people to take the land? You see, people are just being sharp and they're being populistic. They want to attach on anything that attracts the people's attention. We need to deal with that. Really, this is the focus. Let the radios have time for developmental programs. But since morning up to about 10 o'clock, 11, they are talking politics. From about 3 up to 10 in the night, they are talking politics. When do the radios talk to them? When do they teach people poverty eradication? When do they teach people immunization? When do they teach people progress? I mean, a decision has to be taken to realign the country to a certain direction. This is what I think.
Abbas.
Yes.
I shall lobby for you and Betty to become ministers for information and communication and national propaganda.
So, Benard, right there,
has many problems. They're enough for him.
There's a change right there. You see, Benard, now, what Honorable Agaba has rightly put out, it looks like now the MPs are considering getting to constituencies that are nearby parliament so that they can easily run back home and defend what they are doing. Just like, we are seeing Honorable Segrinya here. You can't easily outdo what he's doing. Of course, he's not supposed to be doing that, but now literally all elites are agreeing with him. All elites feel the guy, the honorable is doing work. And now it looks like we've been relegated to that kind of hands-on touch of the MPs, that they should be all present at the times that everything is to be done. But that's the discussion we had. But my question here is still on the priorities as a country. Was the disbursement of the 200 million in this period the right move?
Thank you, Damian. Of course, I will tell you that it was not the right move. We live in a country which has almost now 50% our budget is funded by debt. Okay, and if you look at all governments around the world, they have actually spent much of their time thinking and cautiously making decisions with regards to their priorities and how they invest and support their citizens. To the contrary, in Uganda, we have not spent as much time as we should have with regards to how we should get our priorities right. I said earlier that when you look at our budget expenditure for the last 35 years, you realize that security has been on top of in terms of our expenditure. And I made an argument that economy like this have in many ways survived because of the vulnerability that is exhibited within the population. And so our budget priorities are not right. But it's not late. It's really not late. Parliament, within its right and wisdom, can actually still make these reallocations and readjustments when it comes to how we can. We are still at the beginning of this financial year and at the beginning of the term. So it is not yet late. It's not yet very late. Parliament, in its wisdom, can still make these right allocations. But of course, now the funding of these members of parliament, so of course it's wrong, like I made an argument last time. But let's look at it this way. In terms of political priority, in terms of responsibility and accountability, where does government view the timing and the timing of advancing these funds to the members of parliament? This government has, like Honorable Agaba said earlier, it actually targeted as low as, is it 500 beneficiaries within the cities and urban centers. And so you can see the intention, okay, and how many people are being targeted. That is very low. Many economies outside there, including the US, if they're supporting their citizens, there should, because this is a pandemic, it's actually affecting people across the board. Even people in the villages rely on people in the urban centers to be able to transact their business. So they are equally affected, just like the people who are actually in the urban settings. And so that level of discrimination actually was not right. But my argument here is that this government, in many ways, have transferred its responsibilities to the members of parliament. Of course, when a member of parliament receives 200 million shillings now, you can imagine the stress they're going through, because almost everyone is running to them. Give me some, send me messages. And this is just few months after a political campaign. So these people have the contact, they have, they have everything.
The honorable of the MP of Kampala, the agents were already on her neck. They were like, okay, now that you've started earning, we need our share. And she said, no one demands me.
But of course, that is now a rhetoric. But the truth of the matter is that you won't run away from the population that voted you. And in one way or another, you're actually having a very disgruntled population that needs food. Joseph just said he sent 6,000 shillings to a friend. So people are actually very desperate. So giving the 200 million shillings now is actually a blackmail, just like a comrade earlier said. But let's look at it in a broader context of this. This government fear accountability and responsibility, and that is a fact. In many ways, we have seen government doesn't fully account for the resources that they actually received. You can take, for example, the recent donations that government received from Ugandans. There has been no clear accountability, including even the 200 million shillings that has been advanced to members of parliament. There is no accountability process attached to it. And so you see the executive transferring its responsibilities to people. And that is the instance why it is important that as leaders, in many cases, or in most cases, we should actually try to act responsible enough, take full accountability. The government is responsible for the welfare of its citizens, not individual members of parliament. And it is important that this government takes hold of its responsibility and execute it to its logical conclusion. And it is being reflected. It can be reflected in the way we structure our budget. Okay, it can be seen in the way we structure, reflected in the way we structure our budget, in the way we do follow-ups, and the way we design our programs, and how much money we fund to allocate to these programs. And so it is important that government takes full accountability and not transfer its responsibilities to individual members of parliament. So
thank you very much, Benard. Yeah, thank you very much, Benard. Our time is fast spent. I want to bring on Joseph, and about this time is I will need to give each one of you 1 minute to just give us your final parting shots on the general overview of the discussion we've had in 1 minute, each of you. But I'll start with Joseph.
Yes, thank you. No, just very briefly, I can only really re-summarize the fact that this was a very insensitive move. The timing was very bad. All of us agree on that. And also just to confirm that this is the regime that whose priority is basically to self-sustain and self-preserve itself. to suggest that you give legislators equivalent of $56,000 for a vehicle when the vaccines are $17 and you are complaining that it's too expensive. And yet you very well know that the monies that has been collected for COVID is about 3.5 trillion shillings. And that would actually translate in more than enough vaccine for over 21 million Ugandans. To put it in context, tells you what the situation is and what could really be done if there's a government that is sensitive and responsible. Finally, I just want to say very quickly that whatever happens with the mess, and whoever is listening in government, and Abbas, you are well connected, we are saying that at this time, whatever happens, we must vaccinate the population. We must test the population, and we must make sure that the population, those people who test positive, are treated at public expenses rather than being reaped by public health facilities. Final point, it is very, very saddening that the primary living exams that came out the other day, Nagongera sub-county got 0 in grade 1. Nagongera Town Council, which is now my smaller Nagongera, got 36. 35 of those were from Nagongera Girls School, which is the convent school. Only one came from elsewhere. It tells you the context of the political appetite and economic appetite, now academia appetite, that this country is facing. So while we're having this conversation, I think it's rather urgent that we reclaim our responsibilities and make sure that government stops, if you like, selling off its role and responsibility, because the future of this country is extremely important. The three of us are actually at par. I'm delighted that you guys with whom I'm going to be working long term.
Yes, I need to bring on. Thank you very much, Joseph, for your parting shots. Let me bring on. You just come on. Let me just a minute as you wind up our discussion.
All right. Thank you, Damian. Joseph, the cases that you raised with regards to education in Agongera is not any different across the country. If you pay attention to the national statistics in terms of performance, you realize that actually most of the village districts or constituencies have actually performed poorly in PLA, recently PLA results that have been released. But Damian, I want to say this, and change is deliberate, and change is a very deliberate action that has to be taken for a change to occur. If you want to achieve any change in any environment, then you must have the political will and the decision to take the tough choices for a change to occur. So we are in a space as a country where there is a lot of things that are going wrong. And interestingly is that we see these problems. Sometimes we see the symptoms, and sometimes in many cases we also ask the right questions. And so we know these problems. And who should take the deliberate action? The deliberate action should be taken by a leader. The masses are not in position to take those decisions. It is we, the leaders, who are well positioned to take the decisions that can affect the change that we desire. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Benard. Then finally, Honorable, your 1 minute parting shots.
Oh, is this PA there?
The PA has gone for
Yes.
So, someone must have muted me. Maybe Damian, you might have. That's no,
I think they are doing.
No, thanks. It's been a nice opportunity to share. Joseph just made me remember my honorable colleague, Ochieno. Yeah. You know, when he analyzed the Nagongera performance, and then he says it's because of the political challenges. Yeah, partly because of the planning, but largely government. But you know, one time we were in Parliament and we were debating the marriage and divorce bill. So Honorable Chen stands up and says, there are too many divorces in this country. Families are not stable because of the bad governance. We need to change the government to reduce the divorces and stabilize the family, because they form the nucleus of the governance. But really, about today's topic, yes, I personally have no problem with facilitating members of parliament. They need the facilitation. But my contention is that the timing was so bad that you can't be leading in a crusade of collecting people's contributions to assist in COVID, and then you give out money to members of parliament to buy cars. It could have waited for another about 3 months. And when you multiply it through 200 millions per person for 525, is really some way down trillions of money. So it could really even solve the problem once and for all without going through other people to beg. And then you deal with the problems along the way. That's my take. Lastly, yes, I am very optimistic. This country is moving, is capable of moving further than it is. We must be hopeful. We must be optimistic. We must open our eyes and mind to where we are going. Definitely, the future will be better, but we need to start working on what we think should work for us in future now. One person can change, another changes. I used to be chairman of the Youth League of the NRM at national level, but I've told people before, even that time, it doesn't matter what political party you belong to, really. It matters what your thoughts for the future of the country are. If you are in NRM and you have a corrupt mind, you are not as useful. If you are in FDC or UPC and you condone corruption, you condone abuse of rights, then you are as well as not useful to the generation because you want a cleaner. So it's a shared anticipation that things can get better. And I think they will, one by one, we can make this country better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. And thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Thank you, Benard Cankara, for also honoring our invitation for turning out today. And also Joseph Ochieno for always being here with us as a regular panelist. My internet has been largely poor today, but I think we shall improve as we go on. I might have to request for a relief also along the way to ensure that I cannot operate very well.
Yes.
Otherwise, thank you for being part of the conversation today. I will also, our viewers out there, thank you for always being part of the chat show on Civic Space TV, happening every Friday, 2 to 4 p.m. Kindly, while there, post your comments, post your thoughts. We capture them and share out with the wider spectrum, and at least for very many other people to pick in and join the conversations. Our Twitter space is active. The chat show UG, the hashtag runs every time of the conversation, and the conversations are running there, right there. You go there, pick out what you can, and also learn from there. Also, subscribe to our page, the Civic Space TV on YouTube, and join into the conversation. Thank you very much. Stay safe. We're in a pandemic. COVID is real. Observe the SOPs, and we hope to hear what the president says, and possibly, if anything comes out, then we can get back to normality. So thank you very much for being part of the conversation today, and we'll see you next Friday.
Good.
Thank you very much. Good evening.